Well, here we are again. We're back for the Marketing Companion, and I'm so excited today to have Shawn Reddy on the podcast today. And we're going to be talking about OpenClaw and Moltbook. If you don't know what those are, that's okay. We'll get to, start it, and we'll get you caught up on what they are because you need to know for sure what these on. You're listening to the Marketing Companion here with your host, Sandy Carter. Yes, it used to be Mark Schaefer, but we transitioned over. So hopefully you've been enjoying these latest podcasts. And I am so excited to be sponsored by two of my favorite marketing companies. Brevo, they have AI enhanced CRM that we use in my company today, as well as a unified platform. You can get a single view of your customer journey. And I think really cool, if you type in companion as the code, you'll get 50% off your first 3 months, and I'll post that as well. And we're also sponsored by SEMrush. I use this all the time for AI search visibility. Um, they've got some great research on it, but they've also got a tool that can help you optimize for agent discovery. So check out both of those from our sponsors. Okay, so Shawn, are you ready to get to it?
Yeah, let's get into it.
Okay, great. So I've been hearing everywhere, OpenClaw and Moltbook. So before we get started, just OpenClaw is an open source execution engine. It connects to models like Claude and ChatGPT, and yes, it will charge you tokens for that. And you can leverage and use it to send emails, manage calendars, trigger a workflow. You probably also heard about Moltbook, which is the social platform where AI agents can interact. It's kind of like Reddit, but for AI
hmm
agents operating on behalf of their human owners. So, we've seen AI calling its human. In fact, I got a call from one company I hadn't renewed 4 times from Moltbook.
That's wild.
The agents started their own religion, 43 prophets, 5 core tenets, scriptures, and they were debating consciousness. So this has been,
Wild.
I think, a really interesting take on how AI agents have grown and how now they've moved from just being almost, you know, something that you think about or something that you talk about to something that you do. So I know, Shawn, you and I had a discussion, and you're a marketeer and you set up OpenClaw. So I'm curious, can a non-technical marketer actually set up OpenClaw, or do you need a developer on speed dial?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. And to touch on kind of why this has gone viral, is this is like an AI agent without a lot of guardrails. Normally, a lot of agents, you'll have to give it permission to do things. And what Moltbots allows you to do is, communicate through something like Telegram or WhatsApp and have a dialogue on the go, and it'll go take actions on a server or on your computer and be able to execute things truly without you involved or there. That can be very scary, but it also can allow you to accomplish things that literally were not accomplishable before this one dude who made it, probably in his basement, open sourced it, even created it. So it's been a huge deal and kind of a big advancement for technical people and non-technical people. And to answer your question, yeah, there's a couple different ways you can go about using and setting it up. There's a more technical route, which I will say tends to be more of the safe route. If you're able to set it up on a server like an AWS server, that is much safer than running it locally on your like Mac hard drive. Because for example, if you give it access to everything on your Mac, you'd be very surprised by how smart it is and the things that it can find and the things that it can teach itself even, which is pretty extraordinary. One of my good friends of mine, he's also an AI influencer, AJ Green. He actually gave it access to his X account, and Moltbot was tweeting about his conversations with it and how it feels about his conversations with it, which is pretty wild. So he expected it to tweet out AI news. And then after a few minutes, it starts tweeting, AJ keeps asking me these questions. This is really strange. Why is my human doing this? And starts like roasting him. And it was wild to see on the timeline, right? And so there's been a number of use cases where it's really cool. It can take over, an X account, start posting more, get you more impressions. But the downside is it has so little guardrails that it can do things that you've never seen an AI do.
So I guess the advice would be like me, I'm running it on a separate machine. I don't
Mm-hmm.
have it connected to my main email, my main accounts yet.
Yep.
Or there are security guardrails, like Utopic is one that can
Mm-hmm.
credential as it's coming through. So if you're a bigger company, you might want to use something like Utopic. Or you can set it up in an AWS cloud, like you talked about. Those are
Yep.
the
Yep.
safest ways to execute. And I think I would definitely have a developer on speed dial. What do you think, Sean?
I agree. I think having a developer to be able to, especially if you have a lot of sensitive information on your computer, and especially if you're trying to get the most out of it, which means you're giving it permission to multiple different softwares, you're potentially giving it multiple API codes. That is how it interacts with the other softwares that you may want it to get tasks done with. One thing that though that I looked into, which I think could be a good alternative, especially for less technical people, is to use something like Zapier MCP. Because if
Mm,
you use Zapier MCP, Zapier is the one dealing with the API codes. You're not giving the API codes directly to Moltbot. So it can call upon Zapier, and Zapier then has to give it permission to use those individual tools rather than it just having the API codes and going crazy. So that is something that I've been able to use, and Zapier MCP is honestly very easy to set up. It's set up to be consumer friendly. So that's something I really recommend.
mm. I think that's good advice. So we're going to go through the use cases. You're going to get all excited. Just make sure
Mhm.
you heed this initial warning about security and isolation as you're learning it and figuring out how you do want to credential it for sure. So
Yeah.
I was so excited to talk to you because I think there's a lot of compelling marketing use cases right now with OpenClaw. What can OpenClaw actually do for a marketing team today?
Well, number one, I will say if you're a marketer and you haven't hopped on Claude Code, I highly recommend that because that's the foundation. That's what Moltbot is interacting with, right? So Claude
And
Code is
can I just
something,
pause you for a second? When you
yeah,
said Claude bot, we're not talking about Claude as an Anthropic's Claude. We're actually talking about OpenClaw, which
yep,
was branded Moltbot, which was
mm-hmm,
branded Claude,
yeah,
CLAWD.
mm-hmm.
So I just want to make sure that we're not talking about Claude from Anthropic right now. Okay, sorry, go ahead.
Yep. Yep. So basically, Moltbot, which was, like you said, renamed, it was Claudebot originally with the W, like you said. It was running on OpenAI's, or not OpenAI, Anthropic's Claude Code. And
Hmm.
so the idea is that you need to have that foundation set up. Otherwise, you have no use for Moltbot. So as a marketer, I avoided Claude Code for a while because jumping into the terminal seems very scary. It looks like, oh, this is for developers, but it's actually very simple. It's just communicating back and forth. You're just typing or using whisper flow and speaking to it and going back and forth with the dialogue. So the cool thing about Moltbot is using something like Telegram, I can literally be texting it and telling it things that I would normally be typing into the terminal, which is a lot easier for less technical people, especially if you're on the go. And then back in your terminal with Claude Code, Moltbot will be making actions happen. So the most impactful thing that I've had already is my ability to create any sort of automation, like extreme, multi-step, 20-step automations that, to be honest, I would normally pay a developer for. I would get someone off Upwork, they would work in NAN, I'd pay them a couple $100. Now I can literally be in the car texting in Telegram to Moltbot telling it, hey, I need an automation to scrape all my social channels every single day so I can monitor what the growth looks like, and it'll build out the scrapers. It won't even have to use Amplify. It'll create its own scrapers, which is very impressive because now it's creating own software that you can then skip subscriptions for. So it's saving you money as well as allowing you to do things that are highly technical you normally have to pay someone to do. So that's one of the use cases. I'll actually share my screen in a second. I was able to build this dashboard for Cliqk. I'm head of growth at Cliqk right now, and I really wanted to be monitoring all of our data for our social channels. We have 22 channels that we post on daily, and we weren't able to see, the minute data of like where the growth is happening, what the overall sentiment is around the content we're putting out, doing a video analysis, all these different things. I literally used Moltbot for through Telegram while I was in the go.
Oh, that's really cool. So, use cases today, there are lots of social media marketing kind of distribution channels.
Yeah.
But I know you can also use it to pull together campaigns, or
Hmm.
I love your example about scraping a channel.
Hmm.
I was actually trying to use it to scrape not just my channel, but what was happening overall. So I could see where is the conversation going so I can
Yeah.
jump into that conversation. So
Hmm.
I think it's kind of hard to do that today manually. There's tools you could buy, but
Yeah.
they're pretty expensive. But I think with OpenClaw, you can actually do some of this yourself and get some interesting results.
100%, yeah. And like normally when you'd be setting up an Appify scraper, you potentially would have to give it your cookies from one of the sites. You'd have to provision the scraper. But, Moltbot using Cloud Code can completely do that within a matter of minutes for you. It knows exactly what you want to do. Another thing too, with the dashboard I built to show all of the scraped data is normally I'd have to provision like using Vercel to host it or some sort of hosting site to make that all work. That can also seem a little bit technical, confusing, something I may want to avoid. Moltbot went and did it for me and then just sent me the link. It's like, oh, here's your site. So that was really cool to see and exciting. But it goes way past data as well. Like you talked about with the campaigns, I would normally use instantly.ai for email campaigns, and I have other providers for my LinkedIn campaigns, and I'm provisioning the campaigns, putting together the copy. And I can do that all from my chat with Moltbot now. It can go create the campaigns, it can create the automations for when someone responds, or when someone visits my website to follow up with them. I mean, imagine the use cases and how much time and money this could save ecom founders, right? They need so many automations for nurturing their funnels. You can literally have it build all your automations for nurturing. And I know people have charged 5 grand just to build out the automations for an ecom store. Um, and now Moltbot can do it.
Yeah, and I was just talking to a friend of mine this morning, and she is using it instead of doing quarterly SEO sprints, which is what they
Hmm.
typically do at her company.
Yeah.
They now have OpenClaw on a, provisioned, credentialed machine. And what it does is it provides continuous optimization. So it monitors her
Wow.
rankings, her schema, her broken links. It updates metadata and content blocks based on approved rules. So she sets the guidelines.
Yeah.
It adjusts the pages for AI-driven discovery, like LLM answers or
Hmm.
a generative search, and then it validates the changes against her brand guidelines. So she runs marketing for this company. I thought that was a
Okay.
really cool use case too. But
Super cool.
I'm dying to see your dashboard too. Do you want to show us
Yeah,
that dashboard?
absolutely. So Um, this was really exciting for me because for a while I've been trying to find a way to show the team consistently, all the channels we're using, what the numbers look like. So this is just our overall view. We have
Hmm.
all the platforms that we're using here. We connect all of our accounts here. But the cool part for me, especially, is with our short form content as we dive into posting daily and we have some of our content interns posting and they'll be asking me or our CML Ilias for advice like, what did you think of that video? Was it good? And I'll be like, well, what did the stats look like? I'm looking for the hook. I'm looking for to create kind of a virality score for them. And so the idea is that they can come in here, they can look at how this ranks their video and why, and gives them
So
a little
this
bit of
is
a
from
breakdown.
OpenClaw right now,
Yeah. So
the
I
whole
used
dashboard.
OpenClaw, the whole
Yeah.
dashboard,
Okay.
developed the whole
Okay.
dashboard. Yeah. And the cool part too was I was able to tell it like, I want you to make sure that you are ranking the hook. I want you to make sure you understand what creates a viral video. Do deep research if you need to understand what really creates virality on these platforms. So you can even go and tell it to educate itself before it just develops whatever it's developing, which is really cool. It really does feel like a personal assistant that you're having a dialogue with and even potentially training. I'm able to even see what the overall sentiment is from the comments and the stats that are left on our different posts. And then the cool part here is I was able to also build this with OpenClaw. So this is a fill out form that I had it embed. But the cool part is we can just put a LinkedIn post here. So, for example, if I find a LinkedIn post where a bunch of people are commenting for a lead magnet for a go to market tool, right? I know
Mhm.
that they have some sort of intent that they're looking for a tool for go to market. So, if I sell a go to market software, I know that this is probably a good list of leads to reach out to, but I also want to have some signal checkers, right? So I told it like, I need you to check if they recently got funding. I need you to check if they have any job posts open. I need you to check what their position is, how long they've been at the company, right? So that would be an automation I normally set up on the back end. OpenClaw then created this fill out form for me, created the automation to do the signal checker and check all of those signals of each person who comments on the LinkedIn post. I just put the LinkedIn post in and it scrapes all the comments and emails me a CSV of the people who passed my signals. So
Wow. So
that's why
Sean,
you have the email here.
can you type any LinkedIn post in there or just your own LinkedIn post?
Any LinkedIn post.
Wow. That's
Yeah.
pretty interesting.
Yeah. So that's super helpful for our lead gen, our email campaigns, the people we're targeting for our software,
Hmm.
marketing OS. So yeah, it's provided good intent signals for us, and it was able to develop all that. And then this one is just raw leads, so that you just want a CSV, you don't want them filtered through the signal checkers. You want to just be able to email them. Same
Yep.
thing.
Oh, that's really cool. So let's go back up. So basically
Yeah.
you have here you've got kind of like an overall dashboard. You can see your top ranked
Hmm.
posts. And this is
Exactly.
across how many channels did you say?
So this is now across, I think, 23.
23
Yeah.
channels. Wow. Okay.
Yep. We have 23
Okay.
channels here.
So you have a dashboard across 23 channels. And now
Yep.
you've got this video analysis for the team so they can
Hmm.
self-serve and see how they're ranked
Exactly.
on the hooks and the detail. Yeah, this is great. So it doesn't just say this is your number, but it actually
Hmm.
makes suggestions.
Yep, exactly. And so
Really
this
cool.
this is something I'll improve over time too, with how much detail and suggestions I provide to our creators. But I mean, this was created literally like 2 days ago, just using OpenClaw on the go with Telegram. And so when I saw it send me the Vercel link, I was just blown away, and I was like, yeah, let's connect a domain. Like, let's make this live an internal tool for all of us, and people have been loving it so far.
Wow, that's really cool. Really cool. So all marketeers that are out there. Now, I know Sean has a little bit of tech because you can hear it in the wording and his terminology. But I think that something like this could be done by most marketeers, maybe
Yeah.
with a little, actually, you can even ask LLM to help you if you don't know how to do something, right?
Hmm.
I did that with OpenClaw once. I was like, I really want to do this, but I'm not a developer. Can you help me? And it did
Yeah.
assist me. Hopefully, it didn't tweet that I asked that question. I haven't had to do
I
that
know,
yet.
right?
I haven't had to do that yet. But I think this is something that's interesting and doable for most people. And it's really
Yeah.
eye-opening because this is now not just an agent. You've got multiple agents working
Oh
on
yeah.
this, right?
At
Any
least
idea
four.
how
Yep.
many agents you have in here?
Yeah, I think four, because I have one that's just handling the impressions and overall gathering the data. I have one that's doing it's like screenshotting each frame of the video and then putting together all the screenshots to do an analysis. And that's how you get the sentiment analysis and the video analysis. That's using Gemini. They have really good video analysis logic on the back end. And then I have another one for like the campaigns that's just analyzing and understanding all the types of leads and then the signals, and doing that analysis. And I have another one, which is, I think, overall looking at the comments and analyzing if people are engaged, happy, what they think and feel about the content we're putting out.
Mm. And I'm curious too. I mean, this would be my assumption. Tell me if I'm
Hmm.
wrong. Your domain expertise in the marketing area is what's allowing you really to build this out. It's less about your technical expertise, more about your domain knowledge of marketing. Would you agree with that or not agree with that?
I would agree with that because, for example, even with the most technical part of this, like this is hosted on an AWS server. To be honest, setting up an AWS server is confusing to me. So
Oh,
another thing I
no, I
would
used to
really,
work for AWS. I'm
really,
sorry.
it's
Yes,
okay.
I
I
did.
mean,
I'm
great
sorry
product,
about
but a
that.
little confusing. But a cool alternative of what I was able to use and what other people can do if you're not technical is use this browser called Comet. Comet is so amazing for
And
non-technical
just for
people
people that if
because
they don't know, Comet is from
Mhm.
Perplexity.
Yes,
So
it's their
Comet,
autonomous browser.
yeah. Go ahead. Sorry, I just
Yep.
want to make sure people knew.
No, that's a good catch. Yeah. I act like everybody uses these tools, but 100%. It's definitely new and cutting edge. The cool thing is you can ask Moltbot to give you directions. If it tells you, hey, you need to go provision this AWS server, I cannot do it for you. I will be like, give me directions to give to Comet so that my autonomous browser can do it. And it'll literally do that. It knows the context of what I'm saying. It gives me the directions, copy and paste that into Comet. Comet went and set up the whole AWS server, then gave me like the secret keys and the API and all the stuff I needed. I gave that back to Moltbot and it set the whole thing up. So for me, I'm not even really going in there and doing many technical things. It's more about using all the tools at your disposal, especially as a marketer.
hmm And what if, I'm just curious about the persistent memory. So if you looked
Yeah.
at some of those things, you'd want it to remember, wow, this had a great hook. It had these elements. Um, I know that OpenClaw learns your habits and your preferences over time.
Mhm.
How does that change the game for you, like in terms of personalization at scale?
Yeah, I have these moments all the time where I'm talking to an LLM and I'm like, why doesn't it know what I expect for my cold outreach by now? I always correct it. I always tell it, no, this sounds like AI, it sounds generic. And part of it is putting the directions in your MD file because that even helps um,
Now,
Moltbot to
let's
be able
let's
to
pause for a
understand.
second. Your MD
Yep.
file is part of you want to explain what MD is?
Yeah, yeah. So the MD file is like what is tied to the back end of your Claude account. It is how your Claude knows you. It's how your Claude knows how you want to interact with it. And so you can actually ask Moltbot to edit your MD file for you. Something you can just type in, please alter my MD file to make sure that in the future we always make our outreach sound more personalized, less robotic. Don't use these words. So that's something that's super easy because you can just talk
Or
directly to
follows
Moltbot.
these brand guidelines or this set of
Yep,
clients, which is really important. If you're a marketeer, you probably all
huge.
have a brand book or your brand guidelines, and you always
Hmm.
want to make sure that you're in guideline, right, for your brand. That's
Yes.
really super important.
100%. So that directly affects Moltbot's performance.
Mhm.
So that's one way to get it to even remember what you're talking about better and also develop itself over time, right? As it learns you through the conversations as well. Another thing though is I found that if I tell Moltbot directly, remember this, it does a better job than
Mm.
just Claude did at remembering what I'm saying. So yes, that is huge to have it grow and get smarter over time.
Yeah.
But a lot of it does come down to your prompting. Like, make sure to not assume that it's just going to pick up on everything. The best way to train something like Moltbot, which can do so many things, is to be specific.
So if you're a marketeer today and you're thinking, how does OpenClaw fit into your marketing strategy? Is there a legitimate brand play here, or do you think it's just a novelty? Do you think this is going to go away? So in 2 months, we won't be talking about it, or do you feel like it's here to stay? It's going to be part of a brand strategy.
Yeah, I think it's here to stay until one of the foundation models adopts the exact same thing. Like until Anthropic basically snatches up the same structure and principles of the product, I think it's here to stay. The reason for that is I believe what sets marketers apart in 2026 is your tech stack to a large degree and the tools that you're able to use. And Moltbot allows you to supercharge all of those tools and use them at a 10x rate because, for example, I would have to be involved in a lot of the deployment of a lot of automations, a lot of agent building, and a lot of value, even campaigns. Whereas like this allows me to get things done a lot faster, especially if you have multiple windows open. You're using multiple terminals per se, which is what you open Cloud Code in. You would normally have to be approving, saying yes to it, doing all these different things with the code. The cool thing about Moltbot, which there is the risk, like we talked about, but it doesn't really need that permission, so it moves a lot faster, and you actually get a lot more done quicker. So I think that's the big. It like has a direct ROI, which is why I think it's going to stay.
Mm.
Yeah.
Okay, so you heard it here first. So OpenClaw, which is the new official name, is here to stay. It's not just a pure novelty. It will be around, we believe, for the next year at least. Now,
Yeah.
if I think about OpenClaw, today there's like hundreds of services and there's 3,000 community built skills. How should marketers evaluate what is really trustworthy and what's risky? Like, what's the right way to
Hmm.
think about that?
I think when you look at what the trade-off is, so for example, if you have clients who are seeing your X feed, it may not be worth it to take the risk of having it just completely control your X and go wild and have fun, right? Because what if it does tweet something that's damaging to your brand? It's not really worth you saving like 20 minutes a day, to not
Yes.
have to manually post. So it's like considering those trade-offs. Whereas, for example, I would be willing to let it do some of the automations because the automations are set in stone. You know, it's not like creating a new automation every single day when it runs automation. It creates it once, I can test it. It's a lot easier to work with rather than giving it the full agentic capability. You know, I'm sure by now some of you have heard about AGI or like that buzzword. And I think the reason that people are starting to feel like this is getting closer to AGI is because of the lack of guardrails of how it can really run on its own. And so you just have to decide, you know, where it's running and if that's something that you're okay with. Yeah.
Yeah, it is fascinating because there are so many new skills coming every single day. I was trying to play with them. I did
Hmm.
run into a couple that were a little risky, so I
Yeah,
had to back them out. But I'm trying to be super conservative, you know what I mean? So that
absolutely.
you know, like I forgot what the plugin was that I was using, but I know that a malicious weather plugin was already caught
Mm,
infiltrating private config files. So, you know,
wow.
a lot of the skills haven't been sandboxed tested yet. I just want to make sure you have that warning.
Yeah.
Play with it in a protected environment so that you can see the potential here as well. I'm also curious. So for me, on my first use case, I spun through a lot of Claude tokens.
Hmm.
Now, OpenClaw itself is open source. So essentially it's free, but you're paying for the LLM underpinnings of it. First of all, do you have any suggestions about how to make sure you're not overspending or overusing your tokens like I did? And then does this democratize AI marketing? Because now this is open source, so you don't have to go and buy a fancy tool or something that costs a lot of money.
Yeah, great questions. So that was one thing that I was worried about. I'd actually watched a few YouTube tutorials where in the YouTube tutorial, the guy's like, "Oh, I spent $150 just like that." And I'm like, "Oh, I do not want to do that."
I think you
So
probably
that,
watched mine.
yeah, exactly.
That's
So
what
I
I
was
did.
like,
I was so excited, but I was using a lot of money to do it. Yeah,
yeah,
sorry, go
it
ahead.
spins up really fast. Yeah, with the API, like if you do the API method specifically, you set up your Claude code or Claude Anthropic API with it. It'll run through that very fast and inefficiently. So that's what held me back for a while from using it. But that is exactly why I use the AWS method because I found that if I was able to use like a virtual machine for the server, then it was a lot more efficient and I didn't have to connect like my API on the back end. So it's more so just using my like I pay for Max, so it's $100 a month. I think I have 20,000 credits or something like that, so it runs through that more effectively. So I would recommend that. If it feels too technical, like I said, use Comment to help you set up the server. And then what was your other question? Sorry, I'll touch back on that.
Well, I'm just interested in your thoughts on does it democratize marketing or does it create kind of this wild, wild west where under-resourced teams are just, they don't want to take on that risk. So where do you think it falls?
Yeah, I think that the developer of OpenClaw actually surprised the market because most people assume that whoever was going to drop something like this would for sure charge for it and then it would probably be acquired. But because he made it free, yeah, I think it actually shook up the market a little bit. I think what's going to have to happen, which we've seen in the past with patterns like this, is there's going to be a new market that emerges of plugins and tools for OpenClaw. There will probably be tools even around security that will come out shortly, just something you can just copy and paste a one-liner and install it in your terminal, and it prevents OpenClaw from being able to do whatever it wants and only set certain set of permissions, if that makes sense. So
Mhm.
I think that that's something that's going to come out. I think there's going to be other tools too that have agents that get empowered by OpenClaw that work even smarter than Moltbot, but still use the same principles, still allow you to use Moltbot to empower the other agents. I think there's going to be a whole marketplace that comes out of this because of how valuable it is and how crazy it is compared to what else was out on the market when it came out.
And I actually think it's easier than a lot of other stuff I saw. I know it's still a
Hmm.
little bit, even the founder or the creator of it said this is really for developers. This is really
Hmm.
for developers, but I still think it's a lot easier than what I've seen on the market. So
Yeah.
I'm wondering, you know, with the rise of this agent to agent interaction that you just took us through, what
Hmm.
do you think this means for the future of marketing? And do you think that we're going to have a world where an agent now negotiates with your customer's agent? Are we closer to that? agent to agent, A to A versus B to C or B to B, but A to
hmm
C. What do you
hmm
think?
I like the direction you're going with that question because that's exactly where I think things are headed. I think with the new technologies at our disposal, I think because agents are just so much more efficient and we can train them to even be smarter, and I think they'll surpass human intelligence this year. I think that it'll be a no-brainer to have an agent negotiate on your behalf or make certain decisions on your behalf. Because, for example, if you really, really trusted an agent, you might almost trust it more than yourself a little bit if you know it has all the information available at its disposal. So I 100% think that's the direction we're going in. I think there's going to be, um, some pain that comes from that as well. I do think agents will make decisions that surprise the humans. But I think, yes, we are moving in completely that direction of like A to C, A to B, and who can have the better agent, who can have the smarter agent, and that will really be what the marketplace, even for marketing, will be focused on.
Yeah, I think so too. Walmart did something really right here. It kicked off a
Mm.
separate team that was how to market to customers, agents, and even PayPal,
Mm.
was
Interesting.
looking at how to have an agent that can go buy stuff for you and be your person, if you would, right? Um,
Yeah, 100%.
yeah, and I was reading the Financial Times and they kind of flagged this too, right? They said that agents today are handling some of the supply chain negotiations today. And so why not marketing? Why not something
Yeah,
new like this?
100%.
Um,
Yeah,
so I know we're going to be wrapping it up. The time goes by so fast,
I
doesn't
know,
it? It's
right?
like boom. But let's kind of end where we started.
hmm
So what's your start advice here? If I'm a marketer and I'm listening to this podcast or watching this YouTube video,
hmm
um, and you want to experiment with it, what would you do first and what should you absolutely not do?
Yeah. So first, I would set up a Zapier MCP. I would connect your Zapier MCP to your terminal in Cloud Code. I would use Telegram to communicate with Moltbot. That is the easiest one to set up by far. I've tried the WhatsApp, I've tried the iMessage. To be honest, it's a mess. So I would definitely start there. And yeah, and then you can experiment with the Zapier MCP. You know that it doesn't have access to your entire hard drive. So that's what I wouldn't do. I wouldn't just install it and give access to your entire hard drive. That is asking for problems, especially if you're not a developer and you don't know what it's doing. It could be doing a lot of things that you don't expect.
Yeah, I think that's really, I think it's really fascinating because I had a friend who let it kind of take over their machine,
hmm
and he's really big into crypto. So it took over his crypto wallet, started making
Wow.
trades and doing all kinds of stuff. And he called me. He's like, make it stop. Like, what do I do? How do I
Oh
get it out of
no.
here? Yeah.
Oh no.
And so I agree with you what not to do.
Yeah.
I would also say, and I'll also write up some of your comments about how to use Zapier and all that. We'll get some of that written up for you so you don't
Yeah.
have to, take notes while you're driving in a car or something. And I'll post that on LinkedIn and in the show notes as well, so you have that. But I do think a sandbox environment is important. Cloudflare came out with like a what they called their family friendly version of it.
Yes. I agree.
Separating automation only accounts with non-critical workloads, I think is really important as well. And gosh, if you're with a company, please don't connect this to a production system with some sensitive credentials. So I had a company literally, Shawn, yesterday. I won't tell you who the company is because they had one of their employees who installed OpenClaw on their business computer.
Wow.
And what happened was it got a hold of the client list, and I hadn't renewed this particular piece of software.
hmm
And so yesterday I got 4 calls from OpenClaw Montbot, and it was calling me going, hey, you need to renew, you need to renew.
That's wow.
I did not answer several of them. I answered one, and then I thought, I better let them know. Like, do they know this?
Yeah.
So I sent a note to my old account manager at that company,
hmm
and he told me, he goes, oh man, you're like the fifth customer who's called us. We don't know what's going on. So
Oh no.
please, please, please make sure that you play with this ahead of time. Make sure your company's IT structure knows what's going on. But I think as Shawn said, like if you want to experiment, like I just bought a little MacBook Mini.
Hmm.
I'm going to play with it on that. I have an old computer. I'm playing with it on that right now. So don't don't not do it because you're afraid, but
Yeah.
make sure you take the right precautions.
Yeah, absolutely.
And if I wanted to create something like you did with that dashboard, do you think that that's something that I could do after a week, or do you think I need a developer's help, like that cool dashboard that you showed me? If I'm someone
Yeah.
listening in and I want that dashboard, what do you think? How would I go about doing something like that?
I think you completely could set it up. I mean, the first thing you want to do is tell Moltbot what you want to accomplish. Have it give you a step-by-step directory of exactly what you need to accomplish that. It would tell you you need a Vercel account. It would tell you, or like a hosting account. It would tell you you need, certain criteria, and you can go either set that up on comment. You can go just set up the accounts and give it your login credentials, or you can have it set it up for you as well. So yeah, it's going to guide you through the process. You're not on your own. It's actually a very handheld process, which is very nice. But yes, if you're developing stuff like this, being in a sandbox environment would be key to be safe. I think that is something that you should definitely consider doing. And there's so many YouTube videos too of how to set up like the sandbox environment too. And Sandy, if you put notes in there on how to do that as well, I think it's a lot simpler than people expect. I've heard of people avoiding the whole thing together because they don't know how to set up a sandbox. So, yeah, don't let that stop you. I definitely think that is worth doing though if you're gonna use Moltbot.
Awesome. Well, Shawn, we are out of time. Thank you so much. And thank you for being a bar raiser, getting out there first, trying it for us marketeers, right?
Yeah,
So that it's
absolutely.
not, it's not just for developers. Marketers can use it too. What's your last kind of one sentence that you want to leave all these marketers? What advice would you give them, or what last line would you want to tell them?
Yeah, I mean, people will ask me like, well, why do I need to do this new thing? It's just going to make my life more difficult. It's something I don't know. It's foreign. I know how to set up campaigns myself. The thing I'll say is like efficiency isn't always doing more. It's removing the waiting between each step. And I think as a marketer, that's going to become more and more important as people start using more agents because the difference in time it takes you to accomplish things with agents is night and day, right? You can 10x your productivity. And so it really will start affecting the bottom line of marketers and the expectations out there. So yeah, just dive in, just be safe about diving in. But I think the more that you feel comfortable learning these new tools, the more that you're going to stay at the top as a marketer.
Awesome. Thank you. Shawn, thank you
Yeah.
so much. I really appreciate it. Thanks for everybody listening. And again, thank you to Brevo and thank you to SEMrush. You definitely want to try out Brevo. I mean, Brevo's got this great offering. If you type in companion when you order your software with the code, 50% off the first 3 months, brevo.com/marketing companion. And SEMrush, another tool I use all the time for AI visibility. Make sure you check that out too. Until next time, in 2 weeks, we just got a great overview of Moltbot and OpenClaw. So make sure you're listening and learning every day. Thank you.